Hello, and good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday over here. I know we have lots of energy today because we had some time off, we had some wonderful food, and we are ready to embrace what today brings us. Well, if today is your first day with us, hello, my name is Sadie Uribe, and I'm the media producer for the Los Angeles Regional SBDC. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country helping to stimulate economic growth through business advising and development. The LASBDC offers no-cost services through funding provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and from the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. It's your tax dollars at work. The Los Angeles Regional SBDC network operates 7 service locations throughout Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. Our services are also offered virtually. We are here to help. We empower small business owners by offering tailored solutions through personalized one-on-one business advising, cutting-edge workshops, and comprehensive programs, all provided at no cost. We are dedicated to supporting your entrepreneurial journey every step of the way. And on that note, I am going to say hello, good morning, Lori. How are you? I'm a little too enthusiastic. I'm sorry. The squirrels got me too excited this morning.
I was showing pictures about my lovely little squirrel friends that are here, and I got like documents all over the place. So if I pull anything off seamlessly here, it's going to be crazy that I've been able to do it because I got a million open documents. So, hello, everybody. First of all, I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday, and I am counting down to the end of the year. I'm going to admit it. I am. I'm there, guys, because I'm making a grand announcement. Of course, if anybody looked at the calendar, no small biz talk for several weeks because of the way that the dates land. And I am taking off from the 22nd to the 5th. Yay! 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 So I'm so excited about that. But yeah, we're going to have no small biz talk because if you look at the calendar, it just lies during the holidays. And I don't know about anybody else, but I need a break. I totally need a break. Okay, no further ado. Let's get started here. And I'm going to do a shout out already for, the Lori's Corner of Wisdom. So I see my frequent flyers here. I can count on you being here. So I got some that always puts this into the chat when I do this. So I'm getting you ready already. Okay, guys? So all of those that say, Lori, preach, 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 I'm going to come up with a preach in a second. So get ready to tell me, go ahead, Lori, do your preaching. Okay, guys, this is the webinars I have for the rest of December. And I got to tell you, the cash flow and the customer sales tax one probably is getting axed next year. I don't see that coming back. I think the others will still be here, but it's kind of still in question. So I just want to give a shout out. I'll know more when we get into 2026, which ones are going to be offered. But if you're really wanting to get on these, you might want to grab them before they're gone. They're going to be hot off the shelf and they may be gone later. Okay, upcoming shows. Next week, I have Sean Gardner coming on. He runs a daycare center and he's got an interesting story to tell, the trials, tribulations, all that. I said to him, you know what, you've been at this long enough, you can inspire as well as educate our entrepreneurs. You're in the thick of it as well. So he agreed to come on and tell his story. And I wanted to end the year with one of our fave on the show all the time, Dahlia. And I just want to talk about accounting prep for next year to kind of get everybody ready for things. Because, like I said to you guys, is that when you don't look at your data at the end of the year, and trust me, I don't want to either. I'm like so over it. I get it. But when you come back next year, you can't remember what anything is. So it's really a good idea to kind of get all the ducks in a row. Okay, guys, I had something completely different to talk about today, but I have been like crazy researching things. I'm always researching data and stats and reading through IRS bulletins and census and all this. And so I'm not done with my research. This is raw data that I haven't fully vetted through everything, but it was so amazing that just between us guys, right? Because I'll give you full reports when I do some more research, but just between us, I got to share some of the things that I've come up with in my research. So, first of all, up, it's going the wrong way. Okay, I want to make a note to you guys. I was right. Okay, I was right. So, go ahead, everybody, into the chat. Preach, Lori, preach, Lori, preach. Okay, you ready for this, guys? It's not about buying a quart of milk. Well, yeah, kind of is about buying a quart of milk. So here's where we going, and I got to make sure I pull up my little data sheet so I can read you just the tidbit information, but I will come back and give you the highlights. This is what it has to do with. You guys know that I'm always talking about the solopreneur. We had Zamara on the other day, and we were talking about all the HR laws. I'm talking about all the different things that makes it so costly to hire employees, so costly to, have brick and mortars. And I'm not trying to be the poo-pah type thing on growing big companies. I'm not. But what I've noticed, and I always notice this, but I talk about it in my noticing. This is just my little world. But my world's kind of big with the amount of people I see weekly through the SBDC and mostly the amount of numbers I see. To those guys that remember that Sixth Sense movie, I see dead people, I see dead numbers, okay? And what I keep telling you guys, and it's just more of a noticing, is that I am noticing that the people, individuals who are actually making money, and I'm not talking about like being hugely wealthy, I'm talking about like making any money, are what I call the solopreneurs. They're doing their own thing, whether they're selling their own services, whether selling some things they made, whether they're reselling finished goods, but they're just doing it at home on Etsy, for example. I'm a little bit more than that, but you get what I'm saying. And I just come across all these, companies that have employees or they're starting to grow or they're into this. I got to grow, I got to be a business and I got to do all this. They're like in debt and their credit cards and everything. And I've been talking about that, right? Okay, you guys in the chat, haven't I been talking about that a lot? Don't you like, oh yeah, Lori, that's all we hear you talking about. Well, I decided to do some research. Now, I went into the Census Bureau and I went into the IRS. And so of course my dates are old because they don't, give you data till past some years. So they just released 2025 data. And what I'm going to tell you in the census Bureau is from 2022, so I got to believe it's even bigger numbers than what I'm talking about. And the IRS data, unfortunately, I'm sorry, it's 2021. They just don't update the data before that. But still, it's a trend we can talk about. And I'm just going to give you this, and then I'll come back next week and fill in some more data. Okay, you ready? Census Bureau. In United States, there is 38.1 million businesses. 38.1. Now, I'm going to use a term in US Census and I'm going to explain it. It's called non-employer. So you hear the word employer, you're like, what does that mean? It basically means a company that doesn't have an employee. So they are not being the employer. So non-employer, okay? 38.1 million businesses in the United States, 29.8 million non-employers. Solopreneur. 78% of the businesses, but it gets even more excited. And I'm going to come back and fill in some more data. I'm just starting to dig through this. Okay, I tried to look up IRS and what we call Schedule C filers, right? Schedule C, I'm talking about. Line 31 is the net profit. And it's really hard to get data on like how much individuals are actually making in money. I remember when I was a banker, we tried to get that information, but a lot of them don't report. And so it was really hard to know. But if you can get in the IRS data, you can't get really fine, neat data, but you can get kind of big trends and stuff, right? So I went into the IRS data, and this is what I did. I ran a search for, I just chose companies that have under a million in revenue, right? Million in revenue. This is anything under. I want to try to find a little bit more detail, but I started there, just under a million in revenue. You ready? Okay, now quart of milk. Okay. I couldn't believe that I was able to dig this up. I wanted to know the net income, line 31. What was the net income? Now I don't have it like those under a million, those under, 100,000. I don't have that, but I have something pretty fascinating so far in my discovery. Okay, you ready? I got to read it. And I'll say what I mean. So all companies that are solopreneurs, that's a term I'm using, right? That's a term I'm using. If they have a million revenue or lower, 70% of those companies had a positive net income somewhere around 50,000. 47,000 was a medium. There was closer to 25,000 because there was some skewed high earners, but oh my God, some of the people with companies, I don't even see them making 25,000. Okay. So what my data is suggesting that yes, these solopreneurs is a huge chunk, much bigger than I actually thought. But what it's showing is their positive income. I mean, and it's just, I'm not trying to say that this is the only way to go, but I think we have to be very, very vigilant and conscious about adding overhead and adding growth and maybe I'm going to be on Shark Tank. I'm going to have a bunch of little LLC Gucci bags. Maybe we need to rethink that. That's all I'm saying, guys. That's all I'm saying. So was that fascinating? Oh, what's the percentage again? So 78% of the businesses are non-employer and 70% of the firms 1 million or less, according to 2021 stats at the IRS, were about 50,000 in net income. There you go, guys. And remember that this is a Schedule C. I saw something about LLC. They could be an LLC. Yeah, because it's a Schedule C filer. The IRS sees LLCs as a disregarded entity, so it could be an LLC. But anyway, I have to get to our guest, but I thought that seriously, guys, it really is interesting. I got much more data. I'll pick out a little bit more next time and tell you a little bit more on it. Okay. So, with no further ado, I need to get to today's guest, and I have so many different documents here. Let me find out where I place the intro for today's guest. So, give me 1 second on that. Okay, here we go. We got it. Okay, I am so excited to welcome back to the show returning champion, Ramin Ramhormozi is an e-commerce strategist with over 25 years of experience helping entrepreneurs launch, operate, and grow successful online businesses. His background includes managing online retail operations, developing innovative e-commerce software solutions, and providing strategic consulting to companies across various industries. Ramin is especially passionate about guiding emerging e-commerce entrepreneurs and showing them how to leverage AI to build and scale their businesses more effectively. Thank you and welcome back to the show. You came
It,
back. How are
I did
you?
come back. I did come back because I had such a great time last time. It was so fun, and this is the whole point of coming on podcasts, right? You have to have fun.
I always say, well, I'll go one step further. That's the point of being alive, because if I can't have fun, I'm friggin' out of here. You got to deal with too much in life, you know?
And
But
listen, for those who don't get to experience this, the pre-show conversation is next level. It's like it's amazing.
that is very true. As you guys need to notice, Sadie starts out just still laughing from what we're talking about. Yeah, maybe we need to have a special Sadie where we have a pre-show tapings and we show what's going
Oh
on
yeah,
behind the scenes because
I love it.
it's
Well,
literally wild, one could say,
yeah,
wouldn't you?
I love it. Well, thank you for having me back on again, and hello everybody. Thank you.
What I want to do is, first of
Mhm.
all, or I'm going to go in different order because
Okay.
I just want to come on. I want to get your comment on what I talked about in
Yeah.
my Lori's Corner. I mean,
Uh-huh.
isn't
Yeah.
that because I'm always saying it and I'm not trying to be like against business growth, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
very strongly like we are programmed little robots. Thou must grow, hire employees, must get
Mm-hmm.
investment. And I'm just trying to say that let's like step back and go, what makes sense today? And
Right.
I'm seeing a lot more evidence that maybe there's more choices on the table than, oh, you got to build a company and leave a legacy or I just, because I'm old, so I heard all that stuff growing up. You're old too, so you get it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I did hear, yes, and I did hear all of that. And I don't buy into it. I don't feel that's where we're going. I think that I'm a solopreneur. I run a no employee business. I'm my own employee. I'm the
Yep.
only employee in the business. I think that's the trend, and I especially think with AI, coming into the mix. I think Sam Altman from OpenAI said this that in our lifetime, I mean, maybe in the next few years, we'll see the $1 billion one person company.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is a I think it's a trend. It's nothing to take anything, you don't take anything away from having employees. If you do, it's
No.
fantastic. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Being a boss is a challenge. growing it with, I have a couple of virtual assistants that work with me regularly. So, I guess, they're not on the payroll. They get
Right,
paid. But
right.
I do think that it's a very interesting trend, and one that the IRS and the government should keep track of, because I
Yeah.
think that's where things are going. So for
Well,
sure.
and what I think so too, I always go back to that old song, and someone in the chat always helps me remember. It's the baker, the candlestick maker, that old,
Right. Yeah.
right, right. And
Yeah.
I think that it also to me, and my most favorite word, I got lots of favorite words choice. I got profit, net profit,
Mhm.
but one of my most favorite words, and it has been since I came out of the womb, I think literally is the word freedom. Freedom has always meant a
Yeah.
lot to me for some reason. I think there was a past life experience there. I don't know, but for some reason, freedom's been top. I think that this way of doing business gives more freedom to more people because
Yeah.
if we're all like, I'm doing the candles, you're doing the baking, you're doing this, we
Mhm.
get to interact and then we have choices because we don't have to, oh my God, we got to get market share from this. But no, just each of us
Yeah.
have a few. And I just think it enhances quality of life, is what I'm saying.
I do think so. And it's interesting, everybody has their own definition of freedom. And sometimes, leaving the 9 to 5 job is freedom. But then, you start your own business. You are strapped to that business. You are
You
building it,
are.
right? You're doing things for it. But I read an interesting post that a gentleman named Justin Welsh that I follow out there, and he talks a lot to solopreneurs. And he said, what freedom is? Freedom is deciding at 11 a.m. you're going to go to the gym. Freedom is
Yeah.
walking out the door at 2 p.m. and you're going to go on a walk. You can take the dog on a walk. That's freedom. You have to kind of define what freedom means to you. To me, sometimes freedom is being able to tinker online and study up on more AI, tools that are coming out. That's, exciting to me. I love where it's going. So I think in life, as an entrepreneur, we always have to figure out what freedom means to us and do more of that, right, in our lives. Then we will feel free.
I agree because I'm in the same boat. I don't think freedom is a lack of responsibility or having nothing to do along that line.
Right. Right.
Freedom is able to do things that really engage me and excite me, and I
Mm-hmm.
find empowering. And also freedom on the other side of the scale, which is where I like the solopreneur concept, is the
Mm-hmm.
ability to have agility to change your business model overnight if conditions cause it to be so. I often talk about the fact that I wrote a article a good 15 years ago, and I said business, this is like 15 years ago, remember, so this wasn't the case as much, but that
Mm-hmm.
businesses are like sandcastles. You make it in the day and the water rushes it back
Mm-hmm.
out at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's no longer my grandpa had it, we don't even have a business model
Yeah.
that sometimes lasts our lifetime.
It's
So I
true.
think agility is of utmost importance. It allows you to do course corrections, as I call them, and that
Yeah.
gives you the freedom to change your business model when the one's gone.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I do think about my kids, and I don't ever think about my kids working in my business. I don't think about that because I think about them starting their own businesses that maybe will have some complement to something that I've done, or maybe completely different. They're entering into a day, an age that is completely amazing, right? I mean, what can be created now is amazing. Maybe if you're in real estate, maybe that's a business that is a pass, has
Oh
that
yeah.
longevity, and will get passed along to other generations. But everything else, yeah, comes and goes. The sandcastle is a wonderful analogy on how things are. It could get washed up, right? It's gone.
It's gone. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that there's many ways of looking at things, and I'm been on planet Earth a long time, so I've had different times in my life where I looked at things differently.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I'm not delusional to all of the issues and concerns that's going on in the world, but I think it's one of the most coolest times to be alive.
Absolutely.
There's just so much on the table. I think it's awesome. So one
Yeah.
of the things, and I want to get into a little bit of your background to
Mm-hmm.
give those in the audience that are not familiar with you, but I'm going to start out by saying, and we were talking about one of the things we were talking about the pre-show that actually had some sanity to it, is when I was saying that I do love having you on, and I'm serious curious about that because I like having, I guess probably one would consider it pretty deep conversations
Yeah.
about things.
Mhm.
And I don't, when you get into marketing and social media, I don't want to be just another one where people come on and go, well, here's the rule. And if you do this and put these
Right.
words in, I wanted somebody that would really talk about what they're experiencing and throw a level of intellect and understanding in. And
Hmm.
that is absolutely you. And that's what I really respected the first time on the show. So there's my introduction to
Thank
you.
you.
Now let me give your introduction about you to you. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about you.
Well, let's see. I started my first company in 1997, I think, 1997, 1998, when the internet was first taking off. And that was an interesting time. And I relate a lot of what's happening now to then. We looked at the internet as this amazing tool. And by the way, in 1998, I thought I was already behind schedule.
I did too.
I
Yeah.
thought I was late. Right? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's already, everybody has all the domains. You can't build, but we built a business. It was in the wedding space, and eventually sold that business off. And then I went off to work for the magazine that acquired us in the wedding space. But then I realized I just didn't work well in corporate America. I was not that guy. I was better. Enjoyed, like, if I wanted to pivot, the good old word pivot, change something in my business model, I didn't have to like have a committee meeting. I could make a
Yeah.
decision. So I came back and I started another business also in the wedding space, and grew that to $1.5 million in revenue, and eventually sold that off. But I, at the same time, just, it was all e-commerce. Everything in my life has been e-commerce, and that is where my passion, my love is. And I think there's so much opportunity in the world of e-commerce, and especially now as AI has really taken a foothold in that space and many other spaces. I continue, so I do a lot of advising now, do a lot of education around AI, e-commerce, digital marketing. And I liked, you mentioned, being real. I like to be real. It's hard. Okay. It is hard to run a business. And I'm not going to sit around and say, oh yeah, you do a little of this and a little of that, and you'll be everywhere. Don't worry. No, I worry about businesses. I worry about my clients. I worry about where things are going, because it is very difficult for businesses to grow. So, I have some strategies that I believe work, and, I work on those, but it is none of it. And I guess since 1998, it's always, it's slow to get to where you want to go, right? It does not happen overnight. Overnight successes are very rare. So any entrepreneur out there, you got to keep plugging away. You have to be, what does the end of 2026 look like for you when you're planning right now? Don't think about what does January look like. I mean, I don't know if you can turn, if you do, please call me and give me the game plan, because you figured something out that not too many other people can. So I think my journey is really about entrepreneurship. My journey is about e-commerce. My journey is about helping others achieve success, but also realize, what they want out of business. Why are they doing this? Why, it's a buzzword a little bit to get into business. But gotta be real. Are you cut out for it? You may not be. You may say, oh my God, this is way too much. I cannot stand, getting those letters from the IRS that you got to deal with, or this and that and all this
Yeah.
stuff. You may just not be ready for that, but it's okay. It's all right. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, that's hopefully that answers the question that you were
It
asking.
it totally did. And I call it when entrepreneurship, when Hollywood got a hold of entrepreneurship, is when I think that a bunch of BS
Uh-huh.
was being fed to everybody
Uh-huh.
about these overnight successes. And I always say, even if you go up to a band that you say, oh, you were an overnight success, they almost want to punch you in the face and talk about all the clubs they had to play in,
Right,
right?
exactly.
So
Exactly.
the old, mom and pop way of just slowly growing is so spot on. So thank you so much for saying
Yeah.
that. I noticed, and I don't have your words paraphrased. I have my little pen because I always take notes as I'm interviewing people. But you were mentioning something about, first you were talking about your kids and with what's going on
Mhm.
with AI, and then you talked about the $1 billion with AI, and then you said especially what's
Mhm.
happening now with AI. I've noticed this said 3 times now. What is happening with AI? Tell us what
Yeah.
you mean when you're saying that, because I think that's where the interesting conversation is going to start.
Well, I look at it from the standpoint of, creation, business creation. Solopreneurs are missing one very important thing. We are missing somebody to talk to about our business. We are lonely, when it comes there, right? And, and sometimes my client sessions are a little bit of a therapy session, right?
Oh,
Some of
mine
that,
are all the time.
it's,
Yeah.
bad day, get them excited again about what they're doing. But AI, in some ways, and I do this. I talk to it, like, hey, what do you think of this? Listen, I know that there is not somebody else on the other end chatting with me. I get that this is, a culmination of lots of data out there, and it's, predictive. It's trying to stay ahead, but sometimes it is the great place to work out an idea, work out a business idea. And I think where things are going is not only can you do that, but then maybe work on building the business plan, building the go-to-market strategy, like work through it. You still must be involved. This is not a click a button and get your information out. This is a back and forth, but it helps us get that information faster than we have ever been able to get that information. And then let's say I need a landing page. I'm going to go over to one of my favorite tools, lovable.dev, and I'm going to spin up a landing page. If I need to work out a new workflow, I'm going to go to a program like Lindy and build out a whole AI-based workflow. So all of these tools, and it is hard to keep up with all of these tools that are coming rapid fire, but I believe, and this is what I tell my kids all the time, is that you could sit down within the next 10 to 15 days, you can build a company. You can build a business. I'm pretty confident of that. I have done it. I've taken my existing businesses and changed, a slight direction, but I've worked through that. And I believe that you can do that very quickly. But here's the part that AI cannot do. Execute. It is not it is not going to execute. You must be confident that you are going to execute. And that takes determination. That takes, know-how. That takes, I'm going to wake up every morning, and if my thing is LinkedIn, and I'm going to post and I'm going to share, I'm going to go every morning, get my cup of coffee and do that every single day for 1 hour and be consistent about it and work on that, because you might have worked out the game plan with ChatGPT or Claude, but you have to do the work. I don't know, maybe there's a day where the robot's sitting next to you and, typing away or talking into Whisper Flow, which is an awesome tool, by the way, for anybody out there. Almost feel like that tool is going to replace the keyboard. Like literally, it is so amazing. And this is, again, we are getting away from typing our ideas and talking to the AI, talking to the various tools, and be on a walk, right? Chit-chatting with AI and working through a game plan. So that is what I'm excited about. And I tell my kids all the time, like, get off TikTok, stop looking at all that stuff, build a business. And, they're kids. They're going to like, oh, dad,
Okay, so I got to go back and unpack some of the stuff. I just could talk with you forever. So before I do it, I know somebody in the chat, and probably already has, is going to say, what's Whisper Flow? Because you mentioned a name on this. They want to know. In fact, look, Chris is right there. What is that? So talk about what Whisper Flow is.
So I came across Whisper Flow maybe about a month ago. I looked at it. It takes over. You got to download it. You got to be ready for this. It's going to ask to take over your keyboard settings and a few other things, because it's all voice driven. I wasn't really ready to jump into it. Yeah, I'm like, ooh, wait a minute, too much. I'm an old, I'm 50, 55. I'm like, hold on a second. I have some privacy issues I got to think about. I'm not 25 and just like,
off.
whatever. So I had a little pause, but then I kept hearing about it, and the founder does a great job. He's everywhere. He's on every podcast. He's talking about it, and you start to see the value, and it does such an incredible job of translating your words, taking your words and turning them into text. I've never seen anything do it like this. ChatGPT does a pretty good job. Your iPhone does a pretty good job, but this one, you can just ramble. And by the way, you ramble, it gets everything. Then it puts it into coherent, information. That's where the key is. It turns your ramble into something that is actually important, that you can then maybe feed into another AI tool to get, all right, now that's going to build my business plan, or I need to build my social media. Because if we're on a walk and talking, we're probably rambling, right? We're just spitting out words. And this makes us sound amazing, coherent, everything like that. I don't know where that tool goes, but it's worth giving it a shot. I'm now back into it. I gave up my privacy. I'm like, whatever, just give me the tool. Let me do it. And now I've heard too many other people talk about how it's changing their life. So I want it to change my life. So I'm in the let it change my life mode right now. Let's see what it does. Let's see what it does.
Now, before I lose thought on this, from what you were just speaking, if we could like you back up for a second, I took two takeaways and I
Mhm.
don't want to put words in your mouth, so I want to see if this would be correct takeaways. When we were talking about what is AI doing, where you see AI as a future type thing, it seemed like the two things you were saying, and I'm not sure the number one. Number two, I think I got, but number one, I'm not sure you meant this, that it is also creating new company opportunities. So there's
Mhm.
things you can because of AI and because of its existence, there may be an opportunity like a whisper tool creation or something
Mhm.
like that. So
Yeah.
it seems like you're saying that new company opportunities for launching new companies are coming out because of AI. And then if you do are launching a new company, AI is then also supporting you with resources and tools to be able to do things such as market or whatever.
Mhm.
So it's a combination of new job opportunities, new company opportunities, and new tools to help you be able to promote and produce those new opportunities. Would that be correct?
Yes, both absolutely
Okay.
both sides of that. You know, you can build you can, I mentioned lovable.dev. I love this tool. There's similar tools like base 44 out there. Cursor is like the very complicated one, but these are app development business, these are applications to help you build apps and landing pages and think about all these things that required you to have a developer to build an app. Yeah, just the other day on a demo call, I spun up a dashboard to track AI visibility, a company's AI visibility, and simply off of a prompt, just a simple prompt to get this somewhat functioning. And I'll say somewhat because it requires much more back and forth to get it to place, but it can be deployed. It can be pushed out there. It's got a database attached to it. Literally, I could turn that thing into something. When has that ever been possible in our lifetime? I mean, yes, we could hire a developer, work on, the business plan, all these things, but yes, getting there faster. And now with the tools, so the tools to talk about your business, figure out how to do what you're doing, find the market gaps out there, feed it all this information. Perplexity, by the way, .ai is a phenomenal tool to help you do research because it cites sources really well. We should also make sure the information we're getting is legit. So rather than
Yeah.
just taking it. So all of these tools, I almost feel sometimes, some days I feel overwhelmed by how many tools there are and which ones do I use. So I'm trying to really focus, and I know, and I apologize, I've thrown so many,
No,
.ai
no, that's good. No,
tools
people,
out there, but
Sadie's probably trying to catch up and putting everything in, and I'm making sure if anybody doesn't get. No, I like that.
yeah,
That's what I counted on to
yeah, and
be able to do.
that's what we want. And lots of tools, but we got to figure out the ones that are going to be the core that we need to start. And I just at the end of the day, but I will say, not only are we we're going to execute, we're the ones who have to execute, but really the idea does come from us. It's us that
Yeah.
goes, we go to Chat GPT, we go to Claude and start the process. And hey, I have an idea. Is there something here? Show me the market gap, show me this, help me do the research. But really, this is not going to go away.
Yeah, I heard. In fact, I've been meaning to bring this up in the last couple minutes, and I've been waiting for the right moment. But this is a perfect timing. It always flows into where I wanted to go. I want to make a quick comment, and then we're going to go into some other areas on this. Talking about AI, and I am going to make this statement, the audience is going to love it because what happens is I almost can seem like a Luddite, to use an old word, someone not engaged in technology, because I'm always screaming about using Chat GPT. But the reason I'm screaming about it is people use it to determine what legal structure to set up, and they file
Right.
documents and they're in trouble. So that's why I'm screaming.
Yeah.
So it almost appears as if I'm not into AI, but it's not, it's that use. But I want to make a comment, and you just made a beautiful statement, and I want to elaborate on. I heard somebody say keep the human in the loop, but I
Mm-hmm.
use AI, and how I use it and how I see it is that it is the best, absolute best research intern that I never paid.
Mm,
And
yeah.
it's like having this awesome intern where I literally in my head picture file folders being put on my desk. And so I
Right.
ask it, okay, I want to know what is this? Okay, where did you get the data? Okay, now I think that it's this. What do you think? Go find me
Mm-hmm.
more data and bring it back.
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
I've even talked, I use it so much that they know, like if I'm asking certain things, they don't even go to these resources. Like they'll bring
Right.
it back and say, no, 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 I don't want to hear from that resource. And I even will say, I want to know every independent journalist that made a comment on Substack and Twitter in the last
Mm-hmm.
24 hours. No math, and
Yeah.
it's amazing because you never, I mean, I'm a data research person
Yeah.
to have that amount of data, but I never take the information verbatim and run with it, and I'm using it to gather data. And I think that is a distinction that maybe us that are older
Mm-hmm.
make compared to
Yeah.
some of the younger people who get in a little bit of trouble because they
Sure.
see it as it's their parent giving good advice instead of
Mm-hmm.
using it for research. And I just think that it warrants a couple minutes just to comment if you're
Mm-hmm.
got any thoughts
Yeah,
right
no,
now.
I would, yeah, I'd love to, Laura. It's a great set. And yes, maybe the generation that, grew up, I guess, on the internet and didn't have the internet before,
Right.
we had to be critical thinkers. We had to actually get engaged. And I do think that critical thinking may be, disappearing a little bit here.
Oh, that's one of my
Yeah,
beefs, believe
yeah,
me.
I get concerned.
Yeah, I do.
I get you, and I watch the way my kids operate in ChatGPT. And it's very fragmented the way they speak. It's very quick. It's kind of how they probably speak on social media, on Snap, and all these channels. It's very fast. Not it's not a prompt in its traditional form. It's a quick. It's a conversation they're just having, as if they're talking to their friend. So I do get concerned that, and they're also very relaxed in what they put in there. And by the way, none of them knew about, I had to sit my kids down and like, all right, open up your settings. Let's go look and see. Look, you're sharing. You didn't toggle that button off that says you don't want to share under personalization. They're like, oh, Dad, my God, does it know everything about us? I'm like, well, I don't know. Sure,
Does
yes,
now.
maybe it does now. So I said, go turn that off, and let's hope that I don't even want to know what you wrote in there,
Yeah.
but they are using it as a friend. I can tell they are. They are using it. They're asking advice. They're God, well, who knows what else their kids are
Yeah.
doing out there with it. But I still go with the listen. This is, and I try to preach this to my kids, whether they listen to it or not. At some point, they're gonna figure it out. That this is what you said. This is like this is your assistant. This is your collaborator.
Yeah.
This is somebody to go back and forth with. But at the end of the day, you must be a responsible business person or a responsible person here. You wouldn't go and hire an employee or a VA and just ramble off some, hey, listen, I need you to go here and do this. You're going to give them coherent directions on what you want. Data in, data out concept, right? You're going to give them good information. You're going to get better information out. And I think to your point, it is for research, unbelievable, like hands down.
Unbelievable.
And I saw somebody put a comment in there, like, how do you know to trust that information? Well, that's why perplexity, and you can do this in ChatGPT. You can ask for the sources, cite your sources. You can click on the sources. You can go read those articles. Now, there's another layer in there. Do we trust the source? Is the source, giving you, because we grew up on the, hearing that the internet, you got that off the internet, huh? Well, maybe it's
Yeah.
not that accurate. So, but we want to hope that good sources get cited. And this is what most entrepreneurs, whatever kind of business, a service-based business, an e-commerce business, this is the goal right now, is visibility, getting noticed by an AI, getting noticed by ChatGPT, getting you being the source in there. That is that
Okay.
is the new SEO, right? This is the AEO, the GEO side of things, answer engine optimization and generative engine optimization, getting being the single point of truth for that particular topic. So if you are building a business in a niche, be the expert. Okay, put that content on your website. Do the blog, put the FAQs on your website, be all those things. So when so and so goes and does a quick search on ChatGPT, you're going to be the source and be the right, be a good source of information out there. So I just think that the younger generation, I think they should be just teaching prompting right now, left and right. They should be teaching how to use AI properly. They're not getting that education from the best of my knowledge. I don't see AI classes. I see teachers not knowing really how to use it as well, and those who are doing it well, they're probably learning at home to doing it. This should be like everywhere, education wise. So.
I love what you just said about the fact that be an expert and that the new SEO is actually being recognized as the sources. And I just want to say, yes, I do click on all the sources and I try to go to the ones that I'm so funny about the government now. I don't trust the government even, but I go the ones that are the most like potentially allegedly trustworthy, like the Census Bureau and the
Yeah.
IRS. I try to
Right.
go right to those actual sources, right? But I want to go somewhere else with this.
Mhm.
As you were saying about, and it might be a little bit of where I'm rambling, and hopefully you can come back and tie in where
Okay.
I'm going with this. But you talked about how being an expert now is starting to, I'm going to put a word you didn't use, but
Mhm.
stand out. It's starting to
Yeah.
be noticed. And I'm going to do a really funny tie-in, but it reminds me of the Gutenberg press. I know that sounds weird, but
Hey, no,
no.
I'm not going to
Okay.
laugh because I
Okay.
actually use that in a speech about AI. I use
Oh,
the
okay.
Gutenberg, yes, press as
Okay.
my,
Okay.
that was a transformative piece of
It
technology, right?
It
Yes,
was okay. I thought you're gonna no, and where I'm going with
no,
this is, and I'm not being religious here, but like prior to the Gutenberg press, the monks were scribing the Bible. Well,
yeah,
monks were scribing the Bible. See, look, I'm obviously not religious. I just got the story wrong. But okay, the religious script was
right.
only scribed by monks, and only so many people could read it, right?
That's right.
So the
Yeah,
Gutenberg press came out, and one of the big things is the people were able to read. But
sure.
when the Gutenberg press came out, the beautiful script was lost with just ugly
Hmm.
print, but
Yeah.
eventually it came back where the aesthetics were filtered back in. First, it was just
Mhm.
like, throw it out there, we got it, awesome. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, there was a recognizing the need for something with a little bit more purity into it, right?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think we may be in an opportunity type way going
Hmm.
from the infiltrated, the Gutenberg press, throw everything out to the internet, and if you're out there, it's great, to no, I want some better filtered data. I want
Yeah.
somebody that looks like they know what they're talking about. I want a product that I can see used. And even though they're continuing to buy on social media, I think it's becoming more important of what you're
Hmm.
actually doing and who you're doing. Are you seeing any of this reflect in the marketing and stuff? It sounds like I'm hitting something here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Many of my clients in the e-commerce space, I'm starting to see ChatGPT picking them up as experts because they are putting because we worked on SEO strategies, starting 2, 3 years ago with some of them. They consistently blog. They were focused on that. They went on Reddit. They posted on Reddit. They went into subreddits that were specifically around their
Okay.
niche, or they were very involved in setting those up. They on social media very focused, so they were doing all the SEO things, which really translates perfectly into where we're going, with the AEO world and the GEO side of things. But at the end of the day, I think the internet works well off of niches or niches. That's kind of where it is. So if you're in a niche, know your niche. Do not be afraid to post and put information out there. In fact, I think in some ways doing a disservice if you know a lot about something and you're not talking about it and you're not sharing it, a bit of a disservice. And I know some people maybe feel shy about being on social media and they don't want to go out and do those kind of things. Well, then just do it on your website. Make that the place. Be the expert. Get the content out there. Keep doing that and you will get cited. It's a little fuzzy right now, that world, because AI visibility, I mean, SEO is a mature industry, been around
Right, right.
25 plus years in some form or fashion, and now we're going into this AEO world. But I think to your interesting point you made about once the Gutenberg press, I mean, everything was kind of pushed out there, and that's how we are right now. I think with AI, it's just like, oh my God, like coming at you like so
Yeah,
fast, sometimes you're exhausted, but it will start to clean itself up like every transformative technology. It will
yeah,
start to, the fear is that you, the small player in the space that started to get a lot of traction because you were the expert, are now going to be leapfrogged by some big corporation that has a lot more muscle because they figured out they finally caught up. They're like, because a lot of big
yeah.
businesses out there, I assume, are probably just trying to figure out their AI strategy. They're not fully gauged, and we've got small one person shops out there cranking away right using AI to write content,
Right.
go faster, and they're getting their content out there. So they may be at the top and getting noticed more, but there is that fear always that somebody will come along that's, bigger and start to push down. And I hope that doesn't happen. It's a great time for small businesses. It's a great time.
I fully agree. And, a thought that came to me, and once again, it's Lori being on the preachy side, I guess, is I think there's two, I'm going to call them skills. They're not, but I'm going to call them skills, right? That I think will make a difference about going forward. And they're two of my favorite. I know. Okay, guys. Discipline and discernment. I think,
Yeah,
like you said, there's so many AI tools, you can end up being where you're like all over the place, but
sure.
you have to have discipline to choose what you're doing, and you have to stay a disciplined approach, I think, now than more than ever.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have a discernment too. I think if you focus on internally having discernment and discipline, you can
Mm-hmm.
succeed wildly in this world, because while everybody's running around in chaos, you just kind of like come through the little storm. I think
Yeah.
those are two things. But I had something okay, so I was continuing to research the solopreneur concept. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm outside my world, so I don't know if these are even valid resources, okay? Because I went down a world that I'm not in, but it was interesting because I knew you were on the show and I was in my world with IRS and stuff. And so I decided to do a little more research. So I'll tell you what I came up with because I think it's
Yeah.
interesting. I'll tell you, and like I said, I can't say if these are valid people to have researched this through, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the information I'm about to share, because I always share where I got it first of all, is Fundera's 2024 Small Business Stat, CrowdSpring's 2024 Marketing Trends Report. I used HubSpot, and
Mm-hmm.
I used another one. I think that was the big ones. That's what I big. And I came up with this. Okay, I'll read it in contents. I
Yeah.
wanted to know if I was on the solopreneur. So if these solopreneurs, a lot of them are geography based, right? Because they sell
Mm-hmm.
stuff locally, not as much
Sure.
online. Some of them, they can't ship overseas and
Right.
it's too expensive,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I thought, well, how are they marketing? How are they doing that? What about the person? Is it still, it's not like word of mouth anymore. So I
Mm-hmm.
started asking this, and I got two fun factoids that I'd love for
Mm.
you to run, or I think
Yeah.
factoids, because like I said, that's where it came from. So I came up with this, and it said the first stat I could find was only companies under 5 million, but that still are small companies too, right?
Yeah.
Said
Yeah.
the average spend hovers around 2 to 5 thousand dollars annually on social ads.
Mm.
Facebook and Instagram are still the biggest chunk. So that was interesting. But then I
Yeah.
got this, I said, well, of the really small ones, how many are doing it for free themselves
Mm.
and how many are paying
Yeah.
anything, right?
Yeah.
And I came up with 94% are posting organically, quick updates, stories,
Sure.
engagements. But about 30% rely solely on free, and the
Mm-hmm.
rest are kind of a blend, with 70% investing at least something, according to Fundera. They're paying for somebody to do something at some time with them.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yeah.
it went on to say something really interesting, because I really tried delving down on, but what if it's local? What if it's local? What if it's local? And this is something I think Emma's out there. Emma was talking about this with her Facebook. They
Mm-hmm.
said that Gen Z, which you'll have to tell me what age that is. I don't know. But Gen Z is one of the generations which will buy completely socially, sorry, completely online without
Mm-hmm.
getting referrals and stuff.
Yeah.
But they get this, these are my words, I'm trying to explain it,
Yeah.
you would know more, but
Sure.
they're very good at going into the social media and
Mm-hmm.
doing searches where it's like a community. And so
Yeah.
they get this so specific to their local geographic that for them, they feel like it's getting referrals in a community, like we used to
Mm-hmm.
when we'd ask our best friend or go into a shop and ask for a referral. That's
Yeah.
my data stats. Okay, so for our small companies, what do you make of that? Any
Yeah.
truth? And what do you want? What advice would you give to the people? I came up
Mm-hmm.
with this and said, okay, that's interesting. I don't know if it's got validity, and this isn't my world. So what? So tell us what you
Yeah.
think about that.
I do think that that's what's happening. I mean, I will say that TikTok, in some ways, is a search engine for that generation, for the young generation. My son, as an example, found the guy who cuts his hair on TikTok. And he didn't need the review. I'll put air quotes. The review that he got was the guy doing a video showing the fade and whatever hairstyle he was doing, so he gets permission from he never shows faces, shows the back of their hair, what he did. That was enough for my son. And comments, right? Comments from, oh, amazing, amazing style, this and that. So he found this guy. local guy posting on TikTok. And so when we went in to get a haircut, I asked the guy, I said, where's all your business coming from? He goes, TikTok, a little bit of Instagram.
Wouldn't
So that's
find it.
it. And
Yeah.
he's not buying any ads. He is just being consistent and disciplined in posting and everything he does. And I saw it because he asked my son if he could, take a quick, shot of the back of his head, not showing the front, making sure he was at least conscious of privacy. Thank goodness. And that's all he's doing. So he is literally everything he does, he's thinking about, oh, that's a post. Oh, that's a post. I can do this because it's building his business that way. He is, to this date, I don't know, I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I don't think he's buying ads. He's just doing it, naturally. But yes, advertising has to happen, in my opinion, at some point in a business. Doesn't have to, but you cannot, like some of the top creators. I read this stat out there. It was a little discouraging from a small business owner. 300, some of the top creators are posting 300 times organic posts per week, okay, across their social channels. We cannot keep up with that. They have,
Is that getting them further with three? I mean, is it where the numbers
yeah,
are?
they've got multi-million-dollar businesses
Okay.
off of this.
Okay.
They're also running ads. I'm sure they're doing all of those things. But I do think that, social media is a great place for you. Like, hey, look at me. I'm out here. Hey, I've got a business. It's a great, but none of it really works unless you're being consistent. You can't just go post once on there and wait, a week and like, God, it's really not working. Well, it's not working because you're not being consistent. You're not being disciplined. You got to wake up every morning, get that cup of coffee, sit down and do the thing. And I know it's very hard. And I go through ebbs and flow. I'm like, yeah, I'm in it and I'm doing it consistently. And then something happens in the week, life happens, business happens, and you fall short of your goal. Really, what you should do is not beat yourself up, get back on it and do it out there. But I don't know, does that kind of answer? I think that
It
both
does.
have to happen.
Yep. And one of the things also, and I read, and I'm kind of paraphrasing from the copy I read, but it said that even if people are getting local referrals, they tend to get an awareness of the existence of the company through social
Yeah.
media. So
Mm-hmm.
social media is kind of I'm being old fashioned, the yellow pages, right? So it seems like whether they're purchasing fully from social media or knowing at least who to research more from social media is the game in town that is
It
what you got
is.
to play.
Yeah, but it's frustrating for people. Social media is one of those love hate. I think most people have a love hate relationship with it. They love it when it's working great. They hate the fact that when they don't get
Yeah.
exposure, when they're posting consistently and they're just not getting any traction. But it's free, unless you're running ads, and if you can figure out. But here's one thing that I always try to remember is that, it's something I think I mentioned in the first time we did the interview. Know your ideal client profile, know your buyer persona, both same thing, depending on if you're a buyer persona, you're looking at e-commerce, ideal client profile, most likely in the service-based businesses, know that because that will help you decide what social media platforms to focus on. You don't need to be everywhere. There's, those top creators, yeah, they're on everything because they've blown out this social media platform. They need to move on to the next one, but know which ones, because if you have an audience that trends older, well, maybe you're just going to focus on Facebook and do something on YouTube and that's it. So don't worry about and don't feel like you need to be everywhere. Be where your audience is and work on dominant, even if it's just one channel. Focus in hard on that. And I am guilty of this. Well, there are tools out there that you can use, like later.com or Metricool, that can push your content to every single social media channel. Why wouldn't you do them all? Well, that's just spraying information out there. Be consistent and then be thoughtful of that channel. Like, that channel has a certain way that it likes content. The people who are on that channel, you're not going to post the same way on, TikTok. Maybe there's a little crossover, TikTok and Instagram, but you will be thoughtful about that channel. So don't feel like you have to be everywhere. Just dial it back, focus on one or two.
My first thoughts, of course, it sounds overwhelming when you say 300, and it also
I
sounds
know.
overwhelming from like this big thing. How do you even grab somebody? Because everybody's out there. But my thoughts are a couple things, and you mentioned it just a minute ago. It sounds like being genuine, or the Gutenberg situation, may come into play where, okay, people are going to notice whether something's just generated, or like
Yeah,
the hair person that's taken the back of the head and has almost his trademark being the back of the head
sure.
picture.
Yeah.
But the other thing I'm wondering in that these are kind of combined, that what we were just talking about with Gen Z, is there a possibility that although it feels like really big and wide and hard to get noticed in this big audience, that more and more people will start using filters and zoning in where it will become very local once again, like it was before, but that local just will be with exchange online versus walking around the neighborhood, but it's still going to go back into being local because people will
Hmm.
be filtering through local more like Gen Z's doing?
Yeah, it could be, I don't know where that goes. But I do feel that as things get chaotic out there, we tend to pull back in, right? We
We
tend to
do.
come back into our community,
Yeah.
and using online, searches and techniques to find our community angle. One thing I can think about is that brand that does farmers markets, and I'm not speaking of any particular brand, but clients that I work with that have started, they have an e-commerce business, but they also go and they work in a farmer's market. And sometimes to the point of like, oh God, it's like, is this really working? I'm like, yes, look, first of all, you're making sales.
Yeah.
Secondly, you've got people coming that you can get on your email list right there at the farmer's market. You can then drive them to your website. You can do these things, but it's all starting at the local level. And that's a wonderful opportunity. As much as we get digitized more, that shaking of somebody's hand and looking them in the eye becomes more and more important. And my kids may not, kids of that, of that kids in that generation may not be thinking like that, but I always try to instill, put your hand out, shake, look somebody in the eye. That's
Mhm.
community, that's local, that's where business happens. Really, at the end of the day, so much of it happens on a local level. And I applaud anybody who has, puts on their shoes and puts on their and gets out there in the world and does that, and also participates in the digital aspect of things, putting digital content out there. But they're meeting people, they're meeting their customer where they are
Yeah.
and learning
Well,
from them.
and I'm obviously this isn't even my world, so I couldn't be crystal ballish, but it seems to me like whether we're talking about Gen Z really filtering down to have a local community online or going to farmers market, which I fully agree. I think it's a great way to get feedback as well. So I'm fully support what you just say. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like at the end, the trying to narrow down in the community, which brings us back to the local level. So it
Sure.
may end up where being more something that's substantial, has a unique character, has a trademark like the hair company, has
Yeah.
something special about them, is going to be where we're going to return to once again, and purchasing will be on a community. I don't know about you, but sometimes, like if I'm trying to find something, even if it's local, I'm overwhelmed by the damn amount of choices. I'm just like, just give me, I didn't need 20 million restaurants. I just wanted one.
Yeah.
And I think others are feeling that way too. They just want to
Yeah.
good choices.
I think so. Sometimes when this is a odd, concept here, but in and out, everybody knows in and out the burger.
Yeah.
What a great business that is right now. When we have so many choices, that is a very few choices, right? You go
Yep.
there are like three or four things on the menu, and they do it really well. So I guess maybe I can relate that to, if you are in a niche business, don't feel like you have to offer 10,000 products, focus in on what really works, focus your content, be the expert in your area, use AI to get you there faster, do the research that you need to be done, move your business along, but stay human at the end of the day. I think video, by the way, is a great way for businesses that are maybe not as localized, but maybe going to look in the camera and speak. I'm the founder of XYZ company. I built this product because of the following reasons. And just be human, look in the camera. People love that. They eat that up. About us pages,
Yeah.
underutilized, things, all these things. But that's all community. That's all us desiring to learn about what's happening behind the scenes, that there's a real person running this business, that maybe this person is going to be at the farmer's market. I can meet them in person. I can do all these things. So I think, maybe to sum it up, to say that AI, we're at the greatest time in history of building businesses and using technology to our advantage. But at the end of the day, human interaction is incredibly important. We cannot lose that, and we need to do more of that. So
Yeah, I would completely agree on what you're saying. I had two thoughts, and one of them was, I think the other thing, and
Sorry, I want
no,
to meet Lori in person. Somebody just posted that.
oh, it's hilarious. Um, but one of the things, and once again, this could be just Lori's personality, but I gotta believe, and you guys could say, no, I think this too, or no, Lori, that's you being Lori.
Yeah,
There is a certain level of concern or trust we're having with bigger companies and
yeah,
who's really behind things. I think it's kind
sure.
of a little bit of a social movement, if I can
Yeah.
say that
Hmm.
right. So I think being that about us page that you were just
Hmm.
speaking about is of utmost importance. And I
It's
really do
huge.
feel I think that we're gonna see a return where, maybe while everybody's over there screaming, the solopreneur is saying, hey, look, I do this,
Yeah,
I do it really good, and this is who I am. And they might suddenly find that they're at the top without noticing it. It's
yeah.
that silent versus the screaming person, that silent person that often
Hmm.
raises to the top. And I have to make one last statement on what you just
Hmm.
said because I got to fully support what you're saying about limited SKUs. I
Hmm.
always am in people's face financially. They got so many SKUs, it's causing their profit to drop. So they got too
Yeah.
many SKUs.
Uh-huh.
So see, look, he talked about the
Yeah.
SKUs too,
Well,
right?
yes.
So there.
And especially those businesses, and a lot of them, are still in the world of drop shipping. Even though drop shipping, in my opinion, it's a bit saturated, if we
Yeah.
can use that word in there. You have access to all these products, so therefore I should put all these products on my site, and that's not the approach. Again, go back to what is your customer looking for. You may not know that right now, but you will ask questions of your customer. You will start to see what sells. You will be consistent out there on social media. You will use AI to do research for you. Trim it down. Be focused on your thing, especially if you're running a small business. If your aspirations are to be a 30-40 million dollar company, well, things will change. That's going to be that's different from what we're talking about today. We're talking about being okay with this smaller business that you're going to run it successfully.
Yep. Okay, so I'm giving my final word and then I'll give it to yours. So let's see if I can pull this off. So today is a great opportunity. More than any other time, it's wonderful to be alive. To be a solopreneur with very low overhead is financially beneficial and profitable. Having a disciplined approach, being discernment every day with everything you read, and having critical thinking will be the SKUs for the future success person. And remember, AI is your excellent research assistant. It is not your friend, it is not your boss, and it's not your mother or father. Okay,
Can I
your
just
last
ditto
word.
that? Can I just ditto what you said? Is that
Please,
okay?
yes, yes.
No, I do. I agree with all of it, and I think that at the end of the day, the fundamentals of business are always the same.
They are.
From the person who is running, back in ages and ages ago, it's all the same really at the end of the day, right? You buy something or you make something, you turn around and sell it, or you have a service and you go out and get customers and you convert and make sure you know what your profit margins are. You pay attention to that because really at the end of the day, you must have money left over in order to survive and to pay yourself, and that's the goal too. So the fundamentals of business. And if you don't know the fundamentals of business, come talk to Lori or sit
Yep.
down on ChatGPT for a few minutes and say, hey, what are the fundamentals I need to worry about in my business that I'm not doing already? And maybe
And
you
where's
have,
your sources from?
yes, and cite your sources that you got this from. So I
Yeah.
agree with all of that. And human, more and more, human, the human touch, the shaking the hands and saying hello, looking somebody in the eye, unbelievably important. I hope the next generation doesn't forget that, how important that is, and they continue to do that.
And
So,
I guess I should say for full disclosure, because I didn't say it, my AI is Grok.
oh, nice.
Yep,
Okay.
my AI is
Yes.
Grok. I
I
don't trust ChatGPT. I trust Grok. My AI is.
Wow. I have not heard anybody say that.
And
Sometimes
I
they say
will
it the
tell
other
you why
way.
someday. I did some research on it, but my AI
Interesting.
is Grok, and I will not use any other AI resource. I will if one comes on the table that I trust, but I
Wow.
trust Grok. So yeah, that's
I like it. I try to play in all of them. I don't give as much attention to Grok, but I try at least once a week to go in there. I'm impressed by what I see.
great
It's
resources,
yeah,
only facts, only data. No opinion. I don't
yeah,
want your opinion unless I push
yeah.
to say I'd like your opinion. And
Yes.
I don't do that too often. No, I'm only
I love
kidding,
it.
guys. Only kidding. Okay, thank you. Can I have you on the show again next
You
year? I
may,
love
yes,
talking with you.
absolutely. And maybe we can drill down into some more AI stuff if you want,
Yes,
or we can talk about the
absolutely.
philosophies of business. I'm open to any and all of it. I love the show. You're awesome at what you do. You know, you bring out the best in all your guests. So I appreciate that. And thank you for having me on again. I would love to, join you anytime you want. There's so much to talk about in the world.
Well, and I needed to mention because I didn't, and that is that Ramin is also an advisor at the
Mhm.
SBDC. You're with Long Beach still, right? Long Beach, is that correct?
Long Beach, actually, Long Beach, LA Regional, and North Los Angeles. So kind
That
of
means
all of
you can
those.
just access him like you do
Yes.
me. Sadie is putting the information to reach out to him, and
Yeah.
please do use them. Excellent resource, obviously. Anonymous asked a question about EIN versus Social Security. Sadie's
Mm.
going to stay later. Put email in the chat. Email me your question. I'll answer it specifically, or I'll answer it next week. I might have missed anything in chat. If I did, sometimes it goes too fast for me to catch everything. So, with that, Sadie, I know I went over. Wasn't this awesome?
Well, you know what? It reminds me of my college professor, and we won't name the dates, but definitely it's like the times change. But he said if you're not using the tools at your disposal, you're working with one arm tied behind your back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. That
Sadie was paying attention in college. Did you
I
notice
love
that?
it,
She did
Sadie.
excellent.
And you're a fantastic media producer. You've got this nailed. I love it.
She does, and she has the intro down. I told her she's not going to be replaced by AI. She's got it, and she manages everything behind the scenes while I'm just chatting up a storm. Okay, guys, I went over as I always do, so I have to say thank you again, Ramin, for coming
You're
on.
very welcome.
Thank you to my frequent flyers who are here all the time and on cue. Know to put in the chat that I'm preaching and the quart of milk and the net profit. I love you guys. And if you are new to the show, I don't even have to say, come on back. After this one and all of them, you're probably like, I'm so into this. I got to find out what in the world they're going to say next
I
week.
love it. I love
And
it.
so I have to end it now. Sadie's staying behind. She's got information for everybody, including myself, to get in touch with me if you have any questions, you want to be a guest on the show, the usual stuff.
I
But for
love
right
it.
now, gotta say goodbye to everybody. So
Thank
thank you
Thank
for
you very much,
watching.
Lori. Thank you everybody for tuning in and listening. And hope you got some value out of it. And thanks again for having me on. And have a wonderful rest of your day and happy holidays.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you for watching Small Biz Talk with your host, Lori Williams, and I will see everybody next week. Bye for now.
Bye bye.
All right, guys. So, everyone, as we know, don't worry, I will be here. So, I've just dropped down a bunch of information. We know that the webinars take up a big real estate space. So, I just put those in there at the end. We got the survey going because we got to let the folks know we love Small Biz LA Talk. Let us know what other topics you want us to cover in the new year. So, go ahead, take your time. Don't worry. Let me see. As far as the links, just go ahead and click away. You know how it is. If you register for any of Lori's sessions and something happens and you can't make it, don't worry about it. There's no attendance sheet. No one's going to get mad. Let's see what else I can tell you. As you know, Ramin is also an advisor. So I just want to make sure that you guys are a client of the SBDC if you already are not. So I'm just going to drop that info for you. As you might know, this is a no-cost service to you, and we have so is it business advisors that are top of the field. I mean, we heard all of Ramin's background. We all know of Lori's background. So if there's any like basically the way I can describe the SBDC, if there's any aspect of small business entrepreneurship that you need help with, we have a business advisor in that field, or we can help connect you with a business advisor. And these are all one-on-one sessions. So you really have time to, grow and ask your questions. Like I cannot speak enough about the SBDC. I love it. I've been here with almost 7 years, and every single time I'm still as amazed at the service. So I'm going to put myself on mute. Please let me know if you need anything, drop it back in. But as I said, take your time, click away, sign away, and by all means, let me know how else I can help you, okay? Yes, Brenda, I said I love you guys. Like it's just too much fun, right? We always learn something new. All right, I'm putting myself on mute because I can just talk forever.